So I'm sure many of you don't really know me yet, but you hear those accolades and you're like, you're cool. Well, let me tell you a little bit about me. Well, I was born and raised in Louisiana, and basically, so my first memories as a child was like running around the French patisseries and drinking coffee and watching my grandpa chain smoke cigarettes. And my dad smelling like bourbon. And it was just like the most magical way to start my life. Like I was obviously supposed to be a chef, And so fast forward up to time, maybe like 1998, and we move about an hour north of Indianapolis. I come from a family of farmers on that side of my family. And at that time, then my grandmother was like, well, I'll raise you, you little hellion. And so that's what happened. And basically, I'm so blessed that my grandma was like, I'll take care of this little crazy one because she taught me how to cook, and she taught me that, like, love is an ingredient, and it's the most important ingredient next to salt, So... No, really. Like, you can taste that. Why does your grandma's weird mashed potatoes taste so good? It's because she cooked them with love. You know what I mean? And so let's fast forward again to, let's say, 2005. I'm 18 years old. I decide I want to go to culinary school. And Louisville, Kentucky was, just far enough away from that part of Indiana, but yet not too far away that I couldn't, cry for help, And so I end up going to culinary arts school in Louisville, Kentucky. And I just go for culinary arts, all that savory stuff. And basically, I was blessed to go to school here because I fell in love with bourbon. And hello, I ended up working at for real. I even have a bourbon bottle tattooed on my leg, I'm not playing around. So I end up working at Bourbon's Bistro, and I turned 21 with this restaurant, and I didn't realize, eventually I would be sick of working the line and doing the savory stuff with all the guys, and I found myself in the corner calling my grandma, how do you make that caramel recipe again? And looking at the guys, leave me alone. You know what I mean? And so I ended up being, this pastry chef and all this other stuff, and so eventually... I'm like, Louisville, Kentucky, you've been so good to me. I've cooked for all the most amazing distillers in the city, fell in love with bourbon, all the different flavor profiles, and I've really count myself really blessed. Louisville is a really amazing place. And so then I end up leaving and moving back to Indianapolis, and I end up working at the oldest butcher shop in the Midwest. What? Yeah, that's right. I love steak and ribeyes. And a friend of a friend was like, hey, we need some help. And I'm a chef, right? And so I was like, well, I really don't know that much about that. And I'm hungry all the time. So I guess I'll work there. And so I did. And then 3 or 4 years, speed by. And I didn't realize how blessed I was. I had started dating a guy. Ugh, how many stories sound like that? Pour me a bourbon, right? So I started, seriously, so I started dating this guy, and 3 or 4 years went by, and then he ended up moving out to California, and 6 months went by, and I was like, I still love you. And so I bought a one-way ticket on an Amtrak train. I sold everything I owned, my car. The only thing I had left was my dirt bike. I love to ride. Who loves to ride? That's what's up. And a motorcycle, all right, and a guitar. So that's all I had, and I'm just sitting on this Amtrak. It took me 2 or 3 days. It's September 13th, 2014 by the time that I got to the Bay Area. I've never been there before. I knew one person. I had my hopes and dreams, and before I knew it, I had several different jobs trying to copy and paste to just keep the lights on, you know what I mean? Whew, that was crazy. I wanted to call home crying so many times, but I just couldn't do it. And so about 3 weeks later, after working in a Japanese restaurant, a punk rock bar that Green Day, the band, owned, I realized I woke up, I'm still laying next to this man-child. And it was absolutely horrible. And so then I started to scheme behind his back quite literally every night while we stayed at this hostel together. And yeah, that's glamorous. A chef. I didn't even have my own bathroom or my own kitchen. I gained some weight on burritos in my dreams, I'll tell you what. Anyway, so then I start looking on Craigslist like it's my job. I'm like, how am I going to get out of this? I refuse to call home crying. And I was like, well, here's an ad for Food Network star. I'd never really been a TV person, so I didn't even know what that was. But I showed up. Well, how did I even get there? I don't have a car, right? Because I sold it. So basically, at that time, the BART subway system that's there, if you've ever been to San Francisco, you get on the BART, right? You're smart, you load your little card, it's just what you do. Well, at that time, they're like, well, I'm going to go on strike. Okay, great. So I had to ride a bicycle from Oakland, then go to Jack London Square, get on a boat, you guys, with a bicycle with a tray of my grandma's recipe of apple dumplings that weren't even baked. Don't even ask me. Don't even try to think about calling the Board of Health on me. Oh, my God. I've got a serve safe degree. It's okay. But anyway, and so I have to get on a bike and then get on a boat and then get off the boat and back on my bike and then Embarcadero over in San Francisco. And I'm like, restaurant people are cool. Someone will let me bake off these apple dumplings so I can impress Food Network, and then I'll be whisked away with Giada De Laurentiis. And before you know it, you know what I mean? That is not what happened. But so I did arrive, and I did get off the boat. No one cared who I was, and everyone was like, get out of my face, girl, you have a weird accent. And all I wanted was an old-fashioned, like 5 of them. And I finally am like, well, Sir La Table is in the Embarcadero. So I end up getting my apple dumplings baked off. I then get back on my bicycle. I chain my bicycle up to a sign in front of the hotel in San Francisco, and I'm about to make my Food Network star dreams come true, right? Sure. I puff up my little beehive. I put on my high-heeled shoes, and I'm the best version of a Julia Childs plus Betty Page plus Peggy Bundy you've ever seen in your life. Seriously, those are my muses for my fashion statement. Anyway, and so then I go up the hotel. I literally have like warm, crispy, flaky, grandma feeling apple dumplings in my hand and some wax paper caramels. I get to the floor that the YC media women are supposed to be at, and no one is there. All I see is paper strewn across the whole floor. And I'm very upset. And so I see this old maintenance man, and I'm like, hey, what are you doing later? You want some wax paper caramels? Are these women still here? Make it happen. And he goes into the other room, and the YC media women are still there. I walk into the room, and I hand them some wax paper caramels like I'm trying to bribe them, and it totally worked. They thought it was so cool that I was a butcher girl, and I was a classically trained chef. And all I could talk about was bourbon, bourbon, bourbon. Because in my career, bourbon has been my comfort ingredient because it's so damn good. You know? Ooh, I love it. It's so good. Yeah, amen. It's delicious. I then get invited back the next day after I've wowed these Kardashian-looking New York socialites. And I get back. And before I know it, a couple of weeks have gone by. I spent hundreds of dollars at FedEx or Kinko's because I don't have a car. I have a bicycle and dreams, you guys. Is that enough? You know? And so they call me one day, and they're like, hello, this is Food Network. Is this Loreal Gavin? Yes, it is. Are you alone? In more ways than you know. Oh, my gosh. It was incredible. And so before I know it, I go from walking the streets trying to look like a thug so no one kicks me to sitting in hair and makeup with Food Network, telling them what type of latte that I would like. And 3 months go by. We film in New York. We film in LA. We film in Las Vegas. And it was absolutely incredible, and I didn't realize it, but Food Network knew that I knew what good was. Because I love bourbon. I always cooked with it. Because let's be real, how fun is it to light stuff on fire on television? You know, you see that, you're sitting even on your couch, and you're like, ooh, careful now. Is that the smoke alarm? No, it's just me, you guys. And so my love of bourbon, you know, and knowing how to cook with it and hone all those beautiful flavors, and on top of being a butcher girl, aka the butcher babe, led me to a lot of different things. I almost won Food Network star. I didn't realize when I signed on that I would be, you know, I couldn't tell anyone where I was. I was in a $1 million contract. No one could know where I was, who won the show, the list goes on. But I almost won, but I didn't. You know what? Because almost doesn't count in the food world, you know? And so luckily, several months later, fast forward to 2014, once it had aired, I got the opportunity to go and win Cutthroat Kitchen. And that's exactly what I did. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. You know what? Because I didn't go to school to be a TV personality, which will eventually happen. But I went to school to be a chef. And I loved bourbon and butchery and grandma magic. You know, what would grandma do? That's what I always ask myself, for real though. And so I won Cutthroat Kitchen, and it was so great because I got to be like, guys, I did it, you know. But Food Network knew that I had something magical. And so being on those shows really opened a lot of doors for me. And then the last year, I even got to write a cookbook with a mainstream publisher. Can you believe it? The email that morning, I was like, are you serious? It was so cool. And so the original title of the book was supposed to be Bourbon, Baking, and Butchery. But instead, it got made to be the Butcher Babe cookbook, you know? And being the Butcher Babe has been fun. You don't get a figure like this eating salads. And so I've seriously, like, really, really enjoyed myself. And I like to share the healthier side of the meat industry and shed light on a lot of the factory farming. You know, that, like, people are like, well, if I can get this chicken for $3.99, why wouldn't I do that? Well, there's a plethora of different reasons. I digress. But basically, I'm working on my next project, and it's going to be a more healthy book because we are what we eat. Bourbon still has a place, though, don't you worry. Because I really want my next book to be about holistic health, and the main thing is that, like, people should gather around their kitchen tables. If someone new moves in a part of town, like, let those old school values survive. Because, like, bourbon is delicious, and it's such a romanticized thing. As you all know, like, I'm so humble and grateful to be on this stage, like, sharing it with you guys today. And I'm not going to let those traditions die. But let's be real here. Even in the holistic world, bourbon has a place. So you've got a really bad cold. Put some cayenne pepper, some honey, some lemon, some bourbon. You're going to be feeling better real soon. But you know what? You can leave all those ingredients out and just drink all the bourbon. And yes, oh yes, and recent studies suggest that is the perfect end to a bad day. Duh.